Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in this series of podcasts, Health for Your Wealth, with myself, Liam Carroll, SYS Wealth and Financial Planners. And the idea behind these podcasts is to deal with experienced professionals who are experts in their fields, thus giving giving health to your wealth. So today we're delighted to be joined by Michelle McAuley, and Michelle is a trusted business consultant, executive coach, and founder of Creating Potential, an executive coaching and business consultancy firm based in Northern Ireland. And drawing on her 30-year track record, Michelle has coached established and emerging leaders to identify their purpose, thrive personally and professionally, and so improve business performance. And in addition, she has used her warm, as you'll find out soon, empathetic, genuine, and trusting personality to enable individuals outside the corporate world overcome limiting beliefs and barriers to achieving personal growth. So Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
You're more than welcome, Liam.
Now, as we do with most people, the first question we'll start off with, a nice easy one. What has been the biggest challenge, I suppose, facing you during the COVID times, Michelle? I suppose, first of all, on a personal level.
Well, personally, I'm no different to anyone else. It's just been, unfortunately, the fact that the difficulty in seeing friends and family. I'm very fortunate that my mum and dad are still alive and well, and they don't live too far away. But not being able to get in to see them and give them a hug and meet friends for coffee has been difficult. But that's no more difficult than a lot of people, and there are other people out there who've had a huge amount of more challenges than I've ever had. So it hasn't been too much of a hardship in terms of being at home, because it's been nice to spend a bit of time at home. But I suppose it's the human contact and being able to give your mum a hug and your dad a hug and meet your friends for coffee. So from that point of view, that's probably the only challenge that I would have seen, because I've been quite lucky otherwise.
I suppose, Michelle, it's appreciating the simple things in life nearly, isn't it, as much as anything?
Yeah, I think we go through life, we take a lot of things for granted.
Fair point.
And I think when that had been removed, that you couldn't sort of go and just pop in and sit and have a cup of coffee with people that you love. It's those small things then that sort of really make you realize what's important in life.
You've had a fascinating business career, and I know in my intro I only skimmed through the very top of it, but on a professional level, the biggest challenges, I suppose, that you faced during the COVID period, Michelle?
So for me, with executive coaching, I would have seen a lot of clients on a one-to-one, face-to-face, in-person meeting, and that is great for getting to know people, establishing rapport, understanding their body language, and sort of getting a really good feel for people. So I would say that from a professional point of view, those clients that would have been coming to me because of all of the COVID restrictions, then we had to start doing a lot of work virtually on Zoom, pretty much like everyone else that was dealing with it. So, and then that was really just trying to learn how to work with people on Zoom and on Microsoft Teams, and how that was gonna, how that would work with trying to figure out what was actually going on underneath some people, in terms of because you couldn't see the whole person, you could only see this bit.
Body language, yeah.
So it was a little bit more sort of challenging, but in some ways it worked quite well for a lot of people too, because it gave them the freedom to be in their own surroundings. They didn't have to feel like they needed to jump in the car or be at work. So there was some positive things that come out of it as well. So I would probably say that I would say about 50% of the clients that I would have been seeing on a face-to-face in person moved then onto virtual. But I'm very, very fortunate that my office space is socially distanced. So there are still some people who were able to come here anyway. So yeah, it did have an impact, but not a hugely negative one, which was good.
Yeah, it's funny in a way, and from our own perspective, Michelle, in business like that, everything was face-to-face, and now it's like Zoom calls is probably at the moment 90%, 95% of the people that you meet, and I think an awful lot of it, and you can correct me, but it was us ourselves as people trying to give a service that had to adapt, and clients themselves adapted much quicker. Would that be fair enough to?
Absolutely. And I think it took some people a little bit longer to adjust as well. you know, and at the same time, I think now, because there's so many people working on camera, on Zoom, all of that, I think there's quite a lot of fatigue about now. You'll hear people using the term Zoom fatigue, and you can totally understand that, you know, because they might be on back-to-back meetings, one Zoom, one Microsoft team meeting after another. But yeah, it is different, but at the same time, Liam, it has also opened up other doors, you know, in terms of some of the groups that we're involved in terms of networking. You know, we've probably learnt how to reach out to a lot more people. We've probably connected with a lot more people than we ever would have before. So we'll have to look at the positives there too. There's been massive opportunities for everyone because we've had to move to a virtual platform at times.
Very true, yeah. You get to meet people you never would have met before, like, so it's
well, that's how we met.
Yeah, well, that's very true, yeah, on Zoom, yeah, exactly. Question for you then, I suppose, as well. You've dealt with an awful lot of clients yourself, as you kind of went through there. What would be a typical client, Michelle, that you would deal with, or is there a typical client?
No, because everybody's different. But I suppose if you're asking the types of clients maybe that I work with, so it could be anybody from a chief executive to managing partner, director, maybe head of department or senior leadership teams, or it could be a solopreneur or an individual who's maybe wanting to try and start up a business or a small company. But they're all roles, all different levels in business, and across a lot of different sectors. So I'd be working with people in the finance sector, similar to yourself. I'd be working with people in construction. I'd be working with people in private companies. I'd be working with people who are launching new products, and maybe people that are working with some digital stuff. So it's across a wide spectrum, and it's across basically every position that you could hold in a company, from starting at the bottom to right up to chief executive.
I know a client that I know that works with you, and the words, and you actually, it's fun, it's coincidentally you actually wrote them into your bio as well, but they said you were very empathetic, knowledgeable and trustworthy, which I think are three fantastic traits to have. But a question, I suppose, on your wide and varied background, that tips for people using your experience over the years that people could use coming out of, hopefully coming out of COVID, to bring them into the future?
I suppose the first thing is to allow yourself to readjust, you know, because a lot of people, you know, we were sort of forced into a situation where you had to work from home. You know, there were so many things that you couldn't do. And now that things are going to start, hopefully, to eventually to open up, it's about readjusting to that and to be mindful that, you know, don't go hell for leather and burn yourself out, because you can do all of the things that you used to. Try and pace yourself a little bit more, and try and remember to have that balance of your work's your work, but your life's your life. A lot of people that I work with put themselves so far down the priority list in terms of themselves, and they put the work and everything that they do for work first, and sometimes that can lead to burnout, which isn't good, and then that can lead to a whole load of other issues. So I would say people coming out of COVID, just be mindful of how they're feeling, and to make sure that you get some support if you need it. And it's certainly not a weakness to ask for help. It's a strength. So if there are things as you're going through your working life, your daily life, and you need some support, don't be afraid to ask for it.
Michelle, maybe a very good sounding board for something like that with your experience as well, to be fair. And am I right in picking up that you've nearly said there, like the simple things in life when it came to the personal challenges, and then the simple things, what you said there is very true and simple, but people just don't take it into consideration always. Wouldn't that be fair?
They don't. I mean, I work with a lot of successful people, and their businesses are brilliant, and they've worked really, really hard to get their businesses to the positions that they're in. But it's a common theme that I see with a lot of people, is that they forget about themselves in the process. And so I suppose going forward is to make sure that you don't forget about yourself, and that you realize that, you know, the business can function probably sometimes quite well without you having to be in it all the time.
Yeah, that's it. And I suppose from your experience again, one tip I suppose that you feel is very underused within your industry or with your experiences that people could do to make a big difference in their life, something that's totally not in the public domain is wrong, but that people are not very aware of, if you understand my question.
Well, I suppose one of the tips that I would use with my clients, and it was worked really well for probably 99% of them, is to write stuff down. So whenever I work with clients, I'll give them a blank notebook and I'll say to them, when you know, every time you go to bed at nighttime, I want you to write down what's in your head and put it out on paper. Because if there's people that I would be working with sometimes that would struggle with sleeping because they've just so much going on in their head and they just can't figure out what needs to be done the next day, or they just can't figure out what is the best thing to do. Yeah. So it's actually just a really good tip to write down what's in your head before you go to sleep, because it's out of here and it's on paper, and instead of it running around your head 100 times.
And just ask this question, you're saying write it down on paper, and from purely the psychological, the people, the experts in that field, that's a totally different thing than writing it into your phone or writing it on your iPad and all that. Like, there's something psychological about writing it down, isn't there?
It's just putting pen to paper, and it doesn't even need to make sense. That's what I say to my clients as well. It's not like you don't sit down and write, well, today I did, or once upon a time. It's just start, put the pen to a blank piece of paper and just start writing, and it'll come out naturally. And the amount of people that I've worked with who have said to me, it has made a huge difference. In fact, there was one client that said to me that he found it so useful that he started journaling and writing during the day, and he took it to work with him. And he said there were times when he was sitting in work and his head was just buzzing, and he just lifted the book and he just started writing. And he said, you know, maybe that's not the right way to use it. And I said, you use it for the way you need to use it. But he said it made such a difference for him. So yeah, that would be a tip that I would say, you know, to anyone, regardless of what role you have in a business, whether you own it or whether you work in it. If you have so much going on in your head, put pen to paper, get a plain notebook, set it by your bed and start writing out every night. And it doesn't need to make any sense whatsoever, because it's personal to you.
I learned something today. Okay, very good. I suppose, Michelle, we're nearly fit, and thank you very much for your time as well. The best bit of advice that you ever got, now be it from, sometimes people say from a parent or some business mentor or teacher or something, but the best bit of advice that you ever got?
Probably be yourself, and be true to yourself, and don't try to be something that you think somebody else wants you to be. Be authentic, and if you're yourself, that authenticity will shine through. So yeah, be yourself. Look after your body, your mind, and your health, but ultimately just be yourself. Don't try and compare yourself to others, because you're unique. And be yourself and be proud of who you are.
That's a very nice line, Michelle. Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
No problem.
As we said, you're available early on in the conversation. You're available on Zoom or face-to-faces, and you've a socially distant room there in the background anyway.
Yeah.
A fine looking size of a room, Michelle, I must say. So there's no problem from a social distance point of view there.
No.
And you're available on Zoom, and your details are going to be at the end of this, and they also have been at the start of the conversation as well. So I would highly encourage people, if you're anyway feeling that you need to talk to somebody from a business point of view, personal point of view, Michelle is top class at what she does, and I'd highly encourage you to have a chat with her. So until the next time, thank you to everybody for listening, and thank you so much, Michelle, for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks ever so much, Liam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.